Hey everybody, what's it, Fox Gaming here. So today I wanted to talk to you all about the new Backfire Exotic SMG that is obtained in Season 3 TU11 from the Season Pass at level 55, at which point it will just be available in the general loot pool for yourself. And I assume in future seasons they'll just do what they did with like Vile and Coyote and just put it in the general loot pool if you didn't complete this season. So this SMG is pretty good. On paper it has the capability to be the highest damaging weapon in the game, just in terms of raw DPS, because it has a talent that essentially gives you crazy amounts of damage, but with a caveat. So this is one of the more balanced exotics in the game, and if you build around it, which is usually a Haz Pro build, it is incredibly effective. So let's have a closer look at the talent. I'm going to show you two different ways to play this build, one with Haz Pro and one without. I personally prefer the one with, but the one without does way more damage, and you can still use it in a way that it won't damage you that much at all. So it's an 850 RPM SMG, very much like the SIG MPX. So if you're used to using the apartment or the perfect outsider version, the safety distance, or also the pyromaniac, the police 7.4, they are all 850 RPMs. That's kind of the feel of the weapon. It comes with magazine size as its attribute, which gives us 56 total if you max it out, and its talent, payment in kind, is as follows. Dealing damage to enemies adds a stack of 1% critical hit damage, up to 200 stacks lasting 10 seconds. Yes, you can have 200% additional critical hit damage on top of the critical hit damage you already have on this build, so this can hit crazy levels of DPS. But as I said before, there is a caveat. On reload, apply a 10-second bleed to yourself, which deals 0.5% armor damage per stack. So as you get those stacks ramped up, you can really hurt, and yes, you definitely can kill yourself with this weapon. I've done it a few times whilst testing, so you do need to be very wary of how you build it. My preference is the build that you see before you. It's a combination of critical hit damage, which is important for this weapon, hazard immunity, which is very important, and a little bit of armor on kill just to help keep me alive, because ultimately I do want to keep this as a 6 red build. So what I would say, there's a lot of different ways that you can play this. This is the Haz Pro version, and I will show you the other version shortly. For the Haz Pro version, there are 3 pieces that you definitely need, and the other 3 pieces of gear you can really do what you want. There's a lot of flexibility here. The 3 pieces that you need are the 2 Seska and the 1 Jarl. 2-piece Seska gives you 10% crit chance and 10% Haz Pro, and 1-piece Jarl gives you 10% Haz Pro as well. If you then roll 10% hazard protection onto every other piece, so all 6 pieces, along with your watch level, and of course the 2 Seska and 1 Jarl, you'll be at 90%, which pretty much puts you immune. Excuse me, that'll put you, is that 90 or is that 100? Yeah, 90%, that's right, which will pretty much make you very close to immune for every type of hazard, status that there is out there. What you then want to do to fill in the gap is incorporate a single bleed mod. So the 2 Seska, you want to kind of aim for this sort of roll like this: high weapon damage, high crit damage, high hazard protection. If you need to roll one of those things, try and make it the Haz Pro, because that is the single most important part of this build. So you see here I've got max Haz Pro here, the same here, my chest is the same. The Jarl mask, unfortunately, because these roll as blue, didn't roll at 10%, but you can have 1 blue on this build. It actually works really well because of how much damage it can do, and it just means that you're a little bit more tanky. And then of course Haz Pro here as well. My talents of choice are Adrenaline Rush and Intimidate. Intimidate is the best in slot for any SMG builders. It's 35% multiplicative damage, and then you get 20% bonus armor for each enemy that's near you. The other alternative if you're playing solo is, if I can find it, this bad boy here, which you see I've got a really nice roll. Perfect Bloodsucker is great, but you need to be the one getting the kills to get your bonus armor. So to start with, you won't have it available, and against bosses, Bloodsucker is terrible. If there's no enemies to kill, you will not have bonus armor, and therefore your build will be doing a lot less. So I use this not too often, but it does come with 1% armor regen as well. So it is a great choice for solo play, but I still think that Adrenaline Rush is better. Yes, you lose a lot of survivability because Bloodsucker you can end up with 100 to 120% additional armor, which in solo play is very potent. It doesn't work against bosses. The moment you lose those stacks and there's nothing around to kill and you're just stuck there with a boss, you just lose so much damage, and Adrenaline Rush doesn't have that problem. Honestly though, choose whichever talent you want there. My other build is actually Clutch Obliterate, and I'll explain why that is just after this one. What I wanted to do to give this build a bit of survivability, so for my other 3 pieces I went for Grupo and for Sokolov, because Sokolov gives us 10% SMG damage, and if you have the second Sokolov or a Grupo, they are the same at 15% critical hit damage. So that just helps to keep my damage quite high. And the final piece is the newly reworked 511 Death Grips, the name gloves that you can only get from the Dark Zone, from PvP caches, and from Season caches. This gives you 10% armor on kill, which when paired in conjunction with Gunner gives me 20% armor on kill. So that is essentially how I'm going to stay alive with this build, in conjunction with the little bit of extra bonus armor from Adrenaline Rush. Now another way to build this is just to ignore the Death Grips entirely and get an extra piece in there that will give you Hazard, because as you notice on this piece I don't have Haz Pro. What that essentially means is that I'm below the threshold for immunity, which if you don't know on Bleed is 92%. You don't need to hit 100%. You can easily hit 92% by having Haz Pro rolled onto every single piece, ideally 10%, but even with my Jarl Mask, if I had that at the 8.8 that I do and everything else at 10% on one Bleed mod, that will put me very, very close to 100% with my watch level being maxed out. So that's all you really need to do. Get Haz Pro on either 5 or ideally 6 pieces. If I could get Haz protection on these gloves I would, and then one Bleed mod will hit you that bleed resistance to make it immune. But we're only going to have a tiny bleed here anyway, so it's not too bad. So yeah, I just like the idea of regenerating my base armor in conjunction with the Adrenaline Rush bonus armor to keep me alive. As a result, my critical hit chance is basically cap 59.4 and my critical hit damage is 120.9, but of course that's going to go up to 320.9, so that works really well. I run it with a shield just for a bit of survivability, and the Reviver Hive because yes, it is easy to die with SMG builds, but hopefully with that 20% armor on kill from this and Gunner, that should help to keep me going a bit longer, and I can even make that 30% just by switching to the mop if I do get a little bit low. Just bear in mind, if you do switch though, you will lose all of your stacks. So that's kind of my Haz Pro build. Now there is another way to play this weapon that I prefer, but this is definitely a lot more risky. So you want to be in a good team, ideally with a healer, or just a competent team that you know can cover your back. Because the other version of this build does way more damage than this, but like I said, it's very dangerous. And that is my Hunter's Fury version. Now I did a Hunter's Fury video yesterday or the day before. I will link that in the description, just because it's a very good build and I've been having so much fun with it. Hunter's Fury is definitely the best gear set in the game for solo play, for speed running, and for heroic content. It is phenomenally good. If you haven't started working through your season pass, best way to do it is just get in the Dark Zone, start hitting up those heroic and challenging landmarks in the invaded Dark Zone. Just ignore rogue agents, and if they start attacking you, get a team or just server change. But if you keep hitting those landmarks, you'll go up about 1 level every other landmark. And you can fly through the ranks and get a full set of this, get your Backfire, get everything you need from the season pass, and then you can put together a build. If you run the Backfire with a non-Haz Pro build, you want to use it as your secondary weapon. You can't use it all the time because it simply isn't viable unless you're protected against bleed. So what I did with my Hunter's build is I switched out Adrenaline Rush and Intimidate, which do more damage, to Obliterate and Clutch. Now since Clutch has been fixed where it can now give you the 100% armor back basically all of the time, regardless of how low your armor gets when you get the kill, so it has been completely fixed, it is a fantastic way of countering the bleed on this weapon whilst being used in conjunction with Obliterate, which still gives us 25% weapon damage. We're getting all the armor on kill from Apex Predator anyway, or the 3-piece of Hunter's Fury at least, so that's one way to keep you alive. Clutch will absolutely keep you alive because it is really, really good at the moment, and definitely if you haven't tried this out since it's been fixed, please do so. It works so well when paired with Obliterate. Just make sure you obviously have a high rate of fire weapon to utilise, and then run it with the Booster Hive. So what you want to do essentially is use your, in my case, the Dark Winter, but a high rate of fire SMG. I've got it on Gunner, but Firewall is probably better because you get a lot of bonuses of being in close range with Firewall. So use whatever specialisation you want. You also get the 10% crit mod on Firewall as well, so that's probably best in slot. But use whatever SMG you prefer for your main, and then when you come to bosses, just get in cover close to the boss, get a kill to get your Clutch active, drop down your Booster Hive. What this will do is it cleanses your bleed completely every 5 seconds and gives you a 20% resistance to bleed in between those 5 seconds. So just sit in the Hive, you get a nice 12 charges with that, which is really good. Or if you ran Technician, you would get 16 charges. That in conjunction with Clutch means that you can use this weapon on a non-hazard build and absolutely melt bosses, and I'm talking severe melt. It is incredibly powerful on Hunter's Fury, but very, very dangerous to use, and it definitely takes a bit of practice. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you just the this version here with the Death Grips and Gunner. Screenshot that if you want to. As I say, the two most important pieces are the Sesker and the Jarl, and because it's agnostic mod slots, they can go wherever you want. The other 3 pieces can be whatever you want. Just try and get as much Haz Pro as you can, and ideally get a couple of Sokolov in there, or a Sokolov and a Grupo, just to boost your damage. Right, that's enough talking. Let's go and die super early and embarrass myself. So I'm going to go straight to Heroic. Let's go to 51, so there's no directives. The other good thing about Gunner as well is it gives you your ammo back, and it gives you quite a fast reload. This weapon does have a really slow reload. It's like 2 seconds, 2.1. There you go. At least Gunner gives you a really fast reload every 3 reloads, even if you just reload 1 bullet into the gun. So you see we're at Heroic there. Let's see how we can do. So yes, Bloodsucker could be better here. You know, honestly, let me know in the comments which you prefer. I've always preferred Adrenaline Rush just because you retain the damage against bosses, which you don't with Bloodsucker. But just let me know your preferences. I totally get why Bloodsucker's popular, because in solo play, you're not without bonus armor that often, and it gives you so much bonus armor that you don't really die. So see, that bead only lasted for a little bit of time. There it is again. Oh. Watch the stacks building on the right hand side of the gun there, so you see my critical hit chance get higher and higher. Obviously I'm out of range of Intimidate at the moment. It's still melting though. This is a Haz Pro build. I wasn't trying to run.
Rogue striker drone detected.
Nice, it's actually giving me the I'm gonna capture this point now, or? Pop an armor kit here to get my bonus armor from Gunner. Not in range of this guy for Intimidate, but that's not a problem because I can still build stacks. Oh, I lost him with stacks, it took too long. There he is. I wonder why this point wasn't being captured. So we're at 81 stacks, hitting 500 per crit. I mean, that's pretty high even for a an SMG build. You can build them off of anything as well. Even if the dog's been downed, you can still build it right up until the dog completely disappears, essentially. 115 stacks. Nice little bit of bonus armor there. Or should I say armor on kill. But this is where the bleed starts to hurt. So if we reload now, watch my health go. See that chunk? I mean, I know I came out of combat, but yeah, it works well. I like it. It's, you know, just get as much Haz Pro as you can. I did have a version of this build that was completely hazard immune, or should I say it was like 95%, which bleed can't affect you at that level. However, I had no armor on kill. I had 10% from Gunner, and I just wanted the death grips in there as well. So if you can get death grips with Haz Pro already on them, or just roll Haz Pro and keep it as 1 blue, you can honestly run 1 blue and 5 red with this build. And that actually works surprisingly well. I just wanted pure damage, but yeah, it's a great way to do it. Just keep the death grips to blue, because of course 511 they roll that as default, and then roll the minor attribute to hazard, and then you're going to have the six pieces all with some form of hazard. Oh, it's hitting some pretty chunky numbers. Just melts people. Bear in mind this build has like very little excuse me, because it has such high hazard protection, it has very little critical hit damage, it still just destroys. So I like this weapon. It's, yes, you have to make a build based entirely around it, and I've always been a bit against weapons that are like that. A great example is Merciless. I damage tested Merciless in the firing range, and it actually does about as much damage as a lot of other rifles. It's incredibly powerful, but without something like Braced to really kind of keep that recoil in check, it just doesn't perform well. And, you know, having to sort of put in a load of handling talents to negate that works well, but I've always been a fan... Where am I going here? I've always been a fan of builds that you can just stick a weapon on and it works by default. And, you know, this weapon is not one of those, just like Merciless isn't. But if you've got the resources and the time to put together a Haz Pro build, or the Hunter's Fury build that I put together, I'll definitely start with this one though, just to get a feel for the weapon first, because the other one is definitely harder to use. It's brilliant, you know, it's really worth the time putting that build together for, and I've been actually quite happy to do so. The good news is it's just damage that builds your stacks, it's not critical hits, so you can just shoot them from anywhere, just get a bit of damage or something and keep those stacks going. Refresh the 10-second timer. I mean, I've got no Intimidate active here because I'm out of range, and I'm dropping these. Yes, I know they're only red bars, admittedly, but honestly, you wait until you get a heavy. Hopefully we'll get like a big armor-plated heavy here. Just really build up some stacks. So we're at 137 stacks already. Let's just do a reload to check that bleed. Chunking through my bonus armor. Not too bad though. Dude over here. Sniper turret missed him. Whoa! Another thing you've got to remember is you don't have complete hazard immunity. Don't reload too early if your health is low, because it will hurt. Oh, I'm going to lose my stacks. No! Did I keep them? I didn't! Ah! I mean, normally these missions are absolutely packed full of enemies, but for some reason this one isn't. Not the end of the world though. I suppose it's probably because I'm solo queue. What? Where is he? Oh, there he is. That's because it's the sniper, that's probably why. There we go. So, yeah, it's honestly, it's great. Try it out. I'll bring those builds back up if you do want to screenshot them, just to have a look at the sort of thing that you're looking for. So that is the Haz Pro, or at least very close to being completely hazard protected build. As I say, maybe try and get these as either a different piece entirely if you're not fussed about the armor on kill, or just don't do what I've done, which is roll it to weapon damage. Just leave it as blue and roll it as hazard protection as your minor attribute. And then the Hunter's Fury build. This is my go-to build now, by the way. I've been using this right up to Legendary, and even at Legendary, because you've got Clutch, it works. Obliterate and Clutch are top tier at the moment. Yes, they do less damage, but it isn't that much less, and because you're in the fight for so much longer, it equates to more damage anyway, because you're healing constantly. And then just use the Backfire as your secondary purely for boss melt when you've got Clutch active, and you can just stick your booster hive down with full charges. You can just sit in the radius, build up your stacks on a big boss, and you will decimate them. I'm talking like crazy. You'll be hitting well over 1 million per crit. To put that in perspective, the M1A on a really well-run M1A build, if you've got a boomerang one with 200 plus crit damage and you land a headshot that crits, you're probably looking at about 4 million, you know, like maximum. You wouldn't ever really get any higher than that. I think mine usually hits about 3.7 million. This can hit 1 million per bullet as a body shot when it's 850 RPM. Of course, the M1A is only 180 RPM, so this fires like 6-7 times faster and is still hitting 1 million a shot. It's insane. So try this version out as well, but just bear in mind it definitely takes a bit of practice and getting used to, because you can kill yourself. Clutch is key though, so definitely get that in there with the booster hive. Thank you very much for sticking through to the end. I appreciate this was a bit of a long video, so thank you very much for that, and thank you for the continued support of the channel. Please do let me know your suggestions in the comments for this build, for the Haz Pro and the non-Haz Pro, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Peace.